God bless the hearing of Scriptures this morning. Amen. Please be seated. Thank you for that song. The special music, I loved it. The hymns, the readings, they all are focusing upon one theme this morning. And I want to speak a bit about that theme, which is found in Corinthians, the second reading by St. Paul, where he talks about the glory beyond all measure, the unseen and eternal, the house of God, a house not made with human hands, but eternal in the heavens. Not long after I was out of seminary, these two guys came knocking at our front door of our neighborhood. And sensing they were from some church proselytizing, I ran to answer it. But before I could get a word out of my newly educated mouth, they told me that they were in the neighborhood talking about Jesus. And then they led right into the bombshell question. I'm sure you've all heard the bombshell question, the question that has terrified youth groups in the past, that smoking gun question invented by a morally superior fundamentalist on copious amounts of Red Bull. The question is, if you were to die tonight, where would you spend eternity? And I answered them, why is it always at night? Which left them a little speechless. I mean, what if I don't die tonight, I asked. What if I live another 30 years? I mean, how is your Jesus going to help me with that? Help me deal with that life? Besides, you can't scare people into heaven, can you? It hasn't worked very well in the past. A relationship with Jesus is an embrace of love, not a reaction to fear. If we put a gun to someone's head, of course they're going to say what they think will help them dodge the bullet. Hell is a really lousy bullet. I don't remember Jesus ever threatening people with eternity. He was too busy inspiring people to live lives of peace and love and beauty and meaning. Jesus never asked the bombshell question. His mission was not to get us into heaven. His mission was to get heaven into us and to teach us how to bring heaven here. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, he taught us to pray. Jesus' life and ministry are far more vast and sprawling, and his instructions on life and belief and sin and salvation 1,000,000 times more layered and complex than can be summed up in a nice, neat little smoking gun question. So why is eternity important? Why was it important to St. Paul, who wrote to the city of Corinth a long time ago? The city was a great commercial city, a populous city. It was rich. It was the Vanity Fair of the Mediterranean, the Chicago of the ancient world. My kind of town, oh, Corinth is. Paul worked there establishing a Christian church, and he worked with Timothy and Silas, if you've ever heard of them, and he stayed with this old married couple, Aquila and Priscilla, whose names always remind me of this couple we had from our last parish. When I met them, she said, "Hi, we're Bert and Merle." Easy to remember, it sounds like Milton Berle, she said, only reversed. And she was right. Corinth had one major problem, the big city. They were caught up in a superficial, self-indulgent culture. Sound familiar? But now, as Christians, and because the Romans were bearing down on them, they were suffering. They needed their eyes opened to a bigger reality, to the spaciousness of God, to know that however difficult life gets, Even if we're at our wits' end, we can never be at our hope's end. We can be beaten up, we can be defeated, but we can never lose the war, the campaign. Our bodies may fade, but our souls keep growing. We may feel like we're slipping down the slope into death, but in reality we are climbing up the hill that leads to life. Anything the Christian had to suffer in this life, Paul wrote, would be nothing compared to the glory he would enjoy in the next. We are the only creatures who comprehend that we are going to die, and the only creatures who can imagine living forever. Would life have a radically different significance if we really knew we were fashioned for eternity? Would we see more and hear more and be more? I have had hints, intimations of that stage of life that coexists with this stage of life. Early in grief, I had dreams, lots of dreams. A loved one sitting at my bedside, telling me everything will be all right. In dreams, we'd talk in that mysterious language where, our mouths didn't move. We didn't use words. Except one time. One time, she spoke a word to me. Pursery, she said. And it took me years to find out what that one word meant. Even my Old Testament professor in seminary didn't know. My friend from Oscoda, Tom, was the high school librarian. And so he had his students, his seniors, research the word from my dream, pursery, and found it to be an ancient Persian word that meant a gift for a king. I figured the idea was this agonizing feeling of grief and loss, this very tragedy I was enduring, would one day become a gift, the channel through which God's love and hope would flow through me to others. And it has been a strange gift where I could help and encourage somebody. It has been the gift of me too. It has been the gift of I've been there. It has been a gift I wish I would not wish upon anyone, just as God did not wish it upon me. But life happens. And God's business is to bring good from the bad breaks that life indiscriminately doles out. It's all part of the human nature to have this longing for something more. The completeness of reality, the fullness of truth, the greatness of love, the strength, the length, the height, the depth of communion with God. I've been reading some of the poetic and ethereal writings from the 19th century transcendentalist movement. Never would have guessed that, would you, huh? In Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay, The Oversoul, considered his best work, he says, the human soul is immortal and immensely vast. He calls it the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related to the one eternal. In the last month, I've done a baptism, a marriage, and a funeral. What we like to call in the trade, hatched, matched, and dispatched. What my post office friend called special delivery, COD, and return to sender. I've done many funerals, and I can tell you this, without the resurrection, eternal oneness vision, funerals would mean something totally different to me. Yes, they can be incredibly sad because you have to say goodbye and you'll miss that person. But to believe in something more, to believe in what you cannot see, funerals aren't a goodbye anymore. They're a good night. I'll see you in the morning. Because death is not the unending night. It is the eternal morning. I watched a YouTube video the other day of a near-death experience. A woman named Mary Jo had an aneurysm. She was rushed to the hospital, and then she died, and she saw the light, and she went through the tunnel. and returned to tell about it. God held me, she said. God held me in God's hands and called me by name. It was like God knew her better than she knew herself. And they talked in that mysterious way about her life and about heaven and earth. And eventually God told her she couldn't stay. But she wanted to stay. I'm sorry, you can't stay. It's not your time. She protested. Why can't I stay? I'm a good wife. I was a good mother. I did 24-hour hospice care with patients, she said, cancer patients. You see, Mary Jo wasn't a person of faith. She'd sit with dying patients, and they would tell her that they saw beautiful things in their last hour. And they would ask her, Mary Jo, can't you see them? And Mary Jo would answer, no, I can't see them. Then she'd go out and she'd ask the nurse to check their morphine level. Now she was having her own experience, checking out the place, seeing and meeting everybody in a place of exquisite love and beauty. Why can't I stay? She demanded. And God said, let me ask you one thing. Have you loved another the way you've been loved here? She answered, no, it's impossible. I'm only human. And God said, you can do better. You are the work of my hands. And back she went. Just like the canister in the suction tube at the drive-through bank. Right back. Which takes us back to the smoking gun question. And really, verse 9 of our psalm. If you were to die, where would you spend eternity? The unequivocal answer, in God's love, which endures forever. Amen.